fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy, crime, LGBT, thriller.
You have now entered the House of Mystery.
Welcome back into the House of Mystery. I'm Al Warren. Mr. John Copenhaver is here.
Hey, Al, how you doing?
Well, I've had better weeks, but
I know you have.
Yeah, doing okay.
It was a loaded question. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. It's all right. It's good to talk about it, and the puppy passed, and he, like I said, he lived 19 and a half years. It's all good,
Yeah, that's an impressive run. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy.
You get closer to them the longer they're with you, so it's hard.
Yeah, I'm happy for what I had. I'm happy for what we had together, I should say. So I'm it's sad, but I'm going to keep my feet in the fire. See, that's a good.
There you
go. So the book we're talking about, What Fire Brings, and this is a thriller. Okay, so we've got Rachel Howzell Hall. Welcome to the show, Rachel.
Thanks so much for inviting me, Al. Hey, John.
Hey.
What's going on in Rachel's world? Like, how did you get into this writing gig? Like who hurt you? Like, what happened?
What happened? Sometimes I wake up every morning and wonder, what the hell?
What happened? Yeah.
Well, I'm a native of Los Angeles, so that's the biggest thing that's happened. I've lived here almost all my life. I went away to school, UC Santa Cruz, for 4 years, and then I came back. And Los Angeles happened to me, the good and the bad. I mean, of all cities to write about, this, for me at least, is the most interesting in terms of the diversity in people, the diversity in the land, in the neighborhoods, and food. So yeah, LA happened to me, and I love writing about this city. I mean, if I just stick to LA, I'll be writing forever. And What Fire Brings is the latest in that adventure, and that kind of tribute to the city that I love and sometimes get sick of. It's a weird relationship. Not really, because I actually do. I love it more than I hate it.
Well, I think they're so close together anyway, isn't it? Love, hate, and
yeah.
Really, there's so many overlapping things that exist between the two that it's kind of, you take the one with the other type thing and stuff. In a way, Los Angeles is really a big character. It's its own person, in a way.
Yeah, and I treat Los Angeles like that, tempestuous and romantic and moody and unpredictable. This city, I just came back from Hawaii for vacation, a well-deserved, I must say, vacation. And we can be on any island and we'll bump into someone who lives around the corner from us. It's like, it's an odd thing being from LA because it's so big, 4 million people or whatever. And yet somehow someone who knows someone. So it's a city that has secrets that kind of everybody knows. I mean, it's LA. I always treat it with respect. And when I am reading a story of someone who just is writing about the city that they saw on TV, it kind of annoys me. I kind of did that treatment to Topanga Canyon, which is the neighborhood that I feature in What Fire Brings, but that wasn't intentional. It was pretty intentional how I treated Topanga. But it's all a part of this huge expanse in the desert that has everything you've ever wanted. It just takes forever to get there.
Do you have a meaning behind what you want to write when you involve Los Angeles? Like, is there something you want people to know about LA, about that character?
Oh, definitely. That what you always see on TV or read about in, other books, especially by non-natives or transplants who actually like being here. It's way more complex than what anyone has, any of those types of writers or creatives have expressed. It's more friendly than what people think of it as. I think a lot of people get the impression that, someone who came here and put on the costume of being from Los Angeles, that we're all like that. Whereas many natives and folks who've been here forever are actually we kind of don't really care what people think. And we're actually friendly people. Ask us about a burger or how to get to a place, and we're willing to tell you, show you, drive you there. So yeah, I want to dispel this rumor that LA is this cold place with people who are obsessed with how they look and don't care about other people. I find that an easy lie to believe. And every single book I write kind of points that out. And, my stories tend to have lots of love letters, little Easter eggs to Angelinos, because I think the people who live here are great. Every city has jerks. In LA, we have our number. But for the most part, I think folks are pretty interesting here in LA and respect each other. I mean, all these cars and roads, we have to respect each other if we're not like hitting each other and running red lights and all the rest of it. It's way more ordered than what people give it, and warmer. So those are my stories. Even if it's a side journey into the story, LA is better than what you think it is. And the people here they experience love and loss just like small towns. They have connections like small towns. There are things that scare us in places as big as this, and there are things that scare me in smaller places. Yeah, that's my mission when I'm telling LA stories.
Well, what fire brings? So what's the premise of this story?
A woman goes to Topanga Canyon in search of her missing friend, but that's a ruse. She's actually a private investigator looking for a lost woman. She is pretending to be a writer in residence who is visiting an estate of a best-selling writer who has this kind of writing in residency program that some writers do. And she's using this writer in residence program as kind of a launch pad for this investigation of where a woman, she disappeared in around that space, in around that area of Topanga. So she's looking for her, but not everything is what it seems, including, of course, our heroine, our protagonist in the story.
So the main character, Bailey Meadows, is that you?
In some ways it is not, but in most ways it is. I was writing this story during a time of crisis. I was going through lots of death at this time and loss. My daughter had just gone away to college, so empty nest syndrome because we have one daughter. Both of my in-laws passed within months of each other. My dog passed within that same time span, and then my father passed in September. And so that was a lot of awful, awful loss and grief. And I found myself just kind of standing in place while still working, still doing those things that I'm supposed to be doing, but kind of just in this fugue state of not sometimes knowing how I got in a place. And Bailey, for a lot of the story, she is experiencing grief in some ways and finds herself figuring out who she is, why things have happened to her, where is the person she used to be. That's very much me. Yeah. And I'm, thank God coming out of that now. But I think everyone goes through some sort of fugue state like that where they dissociate, where they can't face, or it's too much to face, or they don't have the tools to face trauma and grief, especially when it's compounded. I mean, we're all coming out of a pandemic, and that was one big collective grief experience. And so we've come out of that, with pieces of us missing or damaged. So this book is an exercise and a rumination on trauma and grief. So I think we're all kind of Bailey Meadows in a way.
Yeah, I've been in it for about 50 years.
Yeah. See? So
I think grief takes time. It just takes time, right?
Yeah.
It's so, you want to rush it. You're like, I want to get to the other side of this.
Yeah.
But it's almost difficult. It's like, it demands that you pay attention and that your process.
I wonder if we really come out of grief or if we actually change, and it's really that process that you got to go through, and you come out
like
of
a new normal.
Yeah, you come out of it with a new normal, a whole new person. You have to find a new.
Yeah, I really think that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just a growth thing, and so I don't know Hey, what do I know? Like I said.
But that, and this book has brought up that kind of conversation about, what is grief and who are we and how we change and how we kind of grow around this new puddle or space in our lives. Because especially when you're losing someone or, a pet, that place it can never fill. So what do you do? How do you move on? What will trigger it? And writing the book really, it helped me realize that I was not immune to it. I've said this before, but this is the first book in my career where I had to ask for a deadline. I missed my deadline because my brain just would not cooperate. I couldn't think straight, especially with a plot as twisty as this one, where I needed to be able to pay attention, and I just couldn't do it. And it forced me to do something I never thought I would, which is, miss my obligation. And of course, my editors were like, "Of course you can." They knew they knew everything was happening. But for me to even ask it, it was a lot for me to do because I never had I didn't know who late Rachel was. I'm the type that will show up 3 hours early to the airport. I'm that person. This book was
you're that woman.
Yeah, I am that woman, and I'm happy about it. I am happy about it. But yeah, I had to get to know the other side of someone who is late to the airport. Yeah, but I think it's made me a better writer. It's made me a better emphatic person. And for writers, especially in this genre, we do need to be able to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, to be able to feel and hurt so that we convey it to our characters and to the stories. We're creating art, yes, and entertainment, yes, but I'm interested in doing all that, but also creating characters where people see themselves and see solutions or see some camaraderie or something to help understand what it is that's happening in their own lives.
You're also writing a lot about writers and writing in your novel. Do you think that's sort of part of this process? Or, I mean, I'm totally guilty of doing the same thing in my writing.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about that.
It's a weird thing right now because, everybody's talking about AI and people who don't understand art are saying, well, you can use it to create this stuff that maybe you shouldn't have that job as a creator, that kind of thing. And it's like, well, writing and any kind of art is a very personal thing. And everything we see and interact with is a result of someone's creative process. And it's a product of that. We are interesting people, us writers, especially, where we're taking something every day and making it into something with a beginning, middle, and end. And life isn't like that, at least within 500 pages. And some people, they write the same stories over and over again until either they're bored or no one's reading it. And then they try something else. And sometimes that's at the cost of someone else, in order for them to become a bestseller. So, you either sell out or you take someone else's experience and you make it your own. So I wanted to talk about that co-opting someone else's experience and exploiting that person. And I also wanted to talk about what it is to create. Even Jack Beckham, who is, who's not as nice as he seems, there is a process that all writers go through to get the truth. For instance, you go into a room and there's a writer, they're paying attention. Writers pay attention to everything. You go to that airport 3 hours early. I'm not just sitting there. I'm looking at the people around me. I'm eavesdropping on their conversations. I'm stealing, basically, I'm taking things. And so the kind of B story in all this is Jack paying attention to Bailey, who is supposed to be his muse and his guide into the life of a Black woman. While in some cases, that's a kind of legitimate thing, it's also kind of weird and exploitative. And I wanted to go into that some and just how dangerous it can be for both the writer and the muse.
Yeah, I think that it's a fascinating thing to explore, that sort of space between the story you want to tell and the story that you're harvesting for someone else.
Yeah,
and
harvesting is a great word.
Yeah, I think it is. You're taking it from them. It's particularly interesting, sort of when they're presented I'm going to be taking this from you. It's like but it's like, wait,
but don't worry.
is this a good one? Don't worry.
It's all good.
I'll respect you.
Yeah. And as someone who wants to be heard or wants to share their story, it's a weird thing. It's like, yay, thank you. Thank you for seeing me, I think. So I couldn't stay away from that angle of this story. It's perfect.
Are you thinking about the reader? Are you thinking about your fan base now and what they're thinking as you write the story?
Yeah, I'm thinking about all of it. I'm thinking about those readers, and I'm thinking about the critical reader who doesn't necessarily read me, but may pick it up and will ultimately say, yeah, I don't get it, and put it down. But ultimately, I'm kind of writing for me in some ways. It can be a selfish thing. I know for this book especially, I remember seeing Memento for the first time and just being blown away by that film. And then reading Shutter Island before, of course, it became a movie, and being totally blown away by that. And wanting as an artist to figure out, how do I do those tricks? I love tricks, and I love clever writing, and I love being, fooled, but honestly, not the cheap tricks, not the sudden, and, the kind of Scooby-Doo reveal. I can't stand that. So any good story that has a twist that it was right there all along, I just didn't pick. I love that thing. And so I wanted to replicate that, but in a way that meant something to me. So first and foremost, it was a challenge for me to figure out how to tell that story and to pull it off. And then, for those writers who actually like my stories, it was for them too. And any readers who hadn't read it, but liked those types of stories, I wanted them to pick this up and say, this is pretty cool. It's interesting. It's not the easiest read in terms of being straightforward, and I, do some experimenting, but I appreciate the effort, and I like the story. So, yeah, but it starts with me first.
Yeah, to hell with anybody if they don't like it.
I like the experimentation. Yeah.
Yeah, I like experimentation. I mean, some of the best stories, when you look back, that stayed with you have messed around with narration and how a story progresses and how their codas and all the rest of it. And I want to be, for myself, especially and for my kid that I'm thinking about, I want to look back and say, yeah, that was a good story. I kind of explored something there. I grew as a writer. I'm always interested in growing as a person and as a creative. Yeah.
So each book, in a sense, changes you, right?
Yes.
There's a certain amount of growth in not only your writing, but even as you as a person.
Oh, definitely. One thing that Walter Mosley said that I agree with wholeheartedly. He, there's the conversation about writing every day, and I do write every day except on True Vacation, which was last week, where I did not write one thing. And Christmas morning, I don't write. But every day I write. And Walter Mosley said something similar to, you should write every day because something new happens to you each day. You grow somehow each day. And if you don't capture that, whatever it is that you learned or how you grew, then it may be gone forever. And it could have benefited basically what you're writing. And I see that. Every day I learn something from the internet or from who I am or a conversation I have. And even if it doesn't go immediately or obviously into something I'm writing, it's back in there somewhere and it will come out. But I want to make sure that I've given it a chance to grow and to expose itself and to somehow find its way into my process. I look forward to it. I get up every morning at 4:00 to write because I have a day job and my brain is freshest in the morning. Before my kid went to college, I was a working mom, and it was the only time that I had from 4 to 6 to do that before going to work, and then taking her to 6,000 soccer practices and all the rest of it. So writing every day was the way that I could actually progress, that I could actually see progression. So even though she's, an adult now and she's at college, I am very much still getting up because that's just what my body does now. And again, I give the best words to myself, and then I give the second best set of words to my employer. So I'm getting the best out of me before anybody else.
So who's the employer? We'll call them right now. We'll let them know. We'll get them on the phone. And
they'd be shocked because my second best is damn good.
Well, there you go.
Right. There you go.
There you go. That's all that matters, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you hope people take away from this? But, at the end of the day, I buy what fire brings, and I read it. What is it you hope that I kind of get?
That grief takes time to process, and sometimes the worst things cleanse us, as fire does. It burns it all down, and yet the forest still comes back. And I think grief does the same thing. We may feel like everything's lost and it hurts so much, but there will be a day where a new blossom pokes out, something interesting, makes us smile again, that we're not alone. And that, eventually, even if there doesn't seem to be a solution, just moving ahead is the solution. That's what I want people to get. That's what I've learned from writing this story.
But you're so young. How do you have such knowledge?
I'm 54. 54 years old. A lot has happened to me in these 54 years. And, again, creatives, I think we have like 2 lives or 3. We pay attention a lot, which is why a lot of us go mad. Because we do pay attention a lot. And it's so, especially now, it's just so much. And I guess that's why when I go on vacation, I read for fun, and I don't go on Twitter as much as I do, because we can't stop our minds from working sometimes. And so, I think even with just being 54, I feel a lot of things, and a lot of things make me rage. And I work in nonprofits, so I'm constantly raging. I'm always fighting against something.
Well, Twitter. God, Twitter is a dumpster fire. What's going on there?
I know.
Cow. That's like a bad bar fight.
It's all just a mess. It's just a mess.
All a mess. It's all a mess.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think that's something about human nature that, because, since I've been young, and that's a while now, we've always, there's an accident, everyone slows down and turns their head and looks. Like we're all looking at the bad thing, or it used to be like, it was a big deal if some movie star had an affair or something.
Yeah.
It was always, ooh. But now it's gone to the point where that's not enough. We're just, there's so much nastiness
we
going
just keep
on
topping
all day.
ourselves. But, it'll be forever and ever. It was, back in the Bible days when folks were begetting folks and, sending people's husbands to the front of the war line and all the rest of it. And it just is. People suck. And as a crime writer, thank goodness, because I'm not good at math and I don't write poetry. So people need to suck in order for me to tell a story.
Well, I just wonder where it's all going. That's all. Because, we see each other a lot more now because of things like Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can turn it on and see people saying and doing all sorts of weird stuff all day long now. And it used to be you never saw that. If you went to the supermarket, maybe you'd see some weirdo, doing something. But overall, it was pretty normal. But now it's out all over the place. Maybe it'll burn out. My daughter's generation, they're weird kids, even though they're social media. Not all of them are like social media hounds.
Yeah.
And like my daughter is not. And on vacation, she likes paper books. She will not read anything on,
paper. What's that?
Yeah. And
yeah.
They watch TV on their phones. So their whole experience with media is pretty unpredictable. They watch our shows. Like all her friends in college were watching Scandal and Moonlighting, like all these kind of serial shows that have beginning, middles, and ends, unlike the shows they have now where a season can be canceled 6 shows in and they will never know what the ending was. So this They're weird kids. I mean, they're our kids because we raised them, but they may just tired of it. They're kind of tiring of it now.
I kind of have faith in the generation myself.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people really put down the young generation and say a lot of bad things, but overall, I see a lot of really good kids.
Yeah, I do too.
And they might not be getting the attention that Sally Joe there doing weird stuff on TikTok is.
Right.
But I think there's a lot of good kids with a lot of good feelings and thinking. I think they have a lot of good ideas, and I think that we're too quick to judge as an older generation. And it's like, no, it's just like what we did when we were young. We sort of had ideas, and I'm sort of pulling for them.
I am too, because they need to take care of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, Gen Z.
I teach at VCU undergraduates, and I agree. I think that as much as they've grown up through all this stuff, they're also, I think, more aware than any generation of the impact it's having on them. Like there's sort of, it's like they're kind of rejecting it, which is just delightful. This idea that they could, be rejecting it, and wisdom, they will be so much better off.
I think so. Yeah, I really do. And they are into books, which is a very hopeful thing.
Yes, for all of us writers out there.
It's like,
let's get some more writing going on here.
Yeah. No, I actually had to pull out. My daughter was reading a Douglas Preston book over on while we're on vacation, and I had to go find the relic in my library because he's like, I want more Douglas Preston. It's like, Richard Preston is his brother. He wrote The Hot Zone. She's like, oh my God, you had a book. So yeah, they're excited about things of old. That makes me very, very happy. And when it comes to writing stories, I'm trying to write something like that where someone can pick it up, years and years and years from now and find something worthy and worth something, something that is a timeless idea like grief. Say, read this to their kid who's in the next generation. So that's what I'm trying to do.
So where's Rachel go from here?
Well, I have the first of my new romantasy series is coming out in December, believe it or not. And it's called The Last One. Yeah, it's a romantasy. And I am not, I wasn't before this a fantasy writer, but an opportunity presented itself and here I am. So yeah, it's about once again, a woman who is facing an identity crisis. That story is one that I love telling. In a realm instead of Los Angeles.
What's the hardest character for you to write? What kind of character?
In some ways, the characters I do write because I don't want her to be the same person over and over. They have very similar backgrounds or outward demographics. My characters tend to be, Black women from Los Angeles. So making that character different, even though in some ways she is me, finding that thing that makes her who she is, that's always hard for me. I do a lot of deep digging when I'm creating a new character. The one I'm working on now, she's a Virgo, which is the total opposite of, well, not total opposite. I'm a Taurus, so we're very similar signs. But I've made her very different from me. And I sought that out so that I can once again grow as a writer, writing different types of personality, even though, demographics may still be the same. She is a different person. So I find versions of me to be hard to write. Because also I want to think of myself as perfect. And
well, you are.
But I'm a villain in someone's story. So finding that villain in every version of myself, that can be difficult, but it's there.
Is it difficult to deal with your imperfections, when you're searching for that other character and then putting yourself, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Is it kind of hard? And then writing about it so that someone like John can read it and then he can, comment about you.
Yeah, it is hard because,
Rachel, I think you're perfect. Just clear.
Thank you. But it is because I want to be as honest as possible, and sometimes meaning that imperfection is embarrassing or it's something that you've been trying not to face or deal with all your life. But it makes for the best, most authentic writing. And that's what I'm after. If I'm going to make myself vulnerable by writing this thing, at least I can point and say, well, she's pretty authentic, for the sake of art, for the sake of, other people seeing themselves and being honest with what's going on with them in their lives and the people who love them or hate them.
But then Sally Ride down the road there can read the book, and then she can give you a bad rating or say something awful. Because nowadays we're all like so exposed to people that doesn't that make you feel vulnerable a little bit?
It does. It does make me feel. It sucks sometimes because art is so very personal. You know that going in, and sometimes you just stop reading reviews. I know I've stopped for the most part. Reading my reviews, because a lot of times it's people are mean just for it's like sport. It's gleeful. Let's see who can top being mean to this person. Someone that you'd never say this to their face. But, you kind of go in knowing that there's going to be someone who is critical of you. And sometimes that can be someone even. It has made me a better critic, like even just watching a movie or a TV show. I'm more kind and more thoughtful in what I say because I think about myself and how hard it was to get up at 4:00 every morning with people dying all around me to create something. So I think I've been made a kinder person because of it. And ultimately, that's what we're all supposed to do, I think, become better people for ourselves, especially those of us who are raised in the church. I don't want to go to hell.
So social media and website, all of that stuff. How do you like to interact with readers and fans?
If you'd like to reach out to me, you can go to my website at www.rachelhowzell.com or on Twitter. I know it's X, but his mama named him Twitter. I'm going to name him Twitter. And I'm at Rachel Howzell. Those are the best ways to reach me.
Well, we've enjoyed having you on.
And thank you for inviting me.
Thanks, Rachel.
This has been a production of the House of Mystery Radio Show. To find out more about our show, guests, or hosts, go to our website at houseofmysteryradio.com.